Getting the equation right. Understanding crypto assets across LatAm.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our AIBC Americas panel. And today we'll be talking about the increased interest in the Latin American region when it comes to crypto assets and the upsurge we've seen in the past few months in terms of, again, possible adoption in various countries like Argentina, Brazil, and Venezuela when it comes to the uptake of crypto assets. And during our discussion, we'll also be discussing as to why there is the sudden upsurge and potentially what the future might have in store in terms of the Latin American region. I'll start off by introducing myself. My name is Jonathan Galea. I am the CEO of BCA Solutions, and I'm a lawyer by profession who's been involved in the cryptocurrency space since 2013. And the BCA Solutions offers various regulatory and technical advisory services in Malta, Singapore, and Liechtenstein. So we offer legal and regulatory services in those three jurisdictions. I will now pass on the floor to our panelists today. Starting off with Jesus, who will introduce himself, then Marco, and then we will kick off our great discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Jesus Rodriguez. I'm the co-founder, CEO, and CTO of IntoTheBlock. We are a market intel and data science company for crypto assets. We mine a ton of data and try to provide indicators and signals that are relevant to investors and traders in the space. It started as just a few months ago in 2019, and today we count over 80 clients, including some of the brands that everyone recognizes in crypto, such as Binance, Bitstamp, Blockchain.com, Bitcoin.com, CoinMarketCap, CoinGecko, and a lot of other funds for which we build quant trading strategies based on indicators. My background is as a computer scientist. I've had a long career in tech as a distinguished engineer at Microsoft, building quant systems in Wall Street, a couple of successful exits as an entrepreneur, and became very active investor in both machine learning startups and crypto, and IntoTheBlock is sort of the merger of the two, those two worlds for me.
Thank you. Marco?
Hi, everyone. I'm Marco Nigris. Right now, I'm in Lisbon, managing the Fintech house. That is basically a hub for Fintech startups, Fintech, RegTech, InsurTech, and cybersecurity. Obviously, the crypto vertical is there as well, and we're basically helping the startups to grow with different verticals. That is, it could be talent, investing, regulation, and connection to the incumbents. I'm Argentinian, and I was always in an amateur space in the cryptocurrency, but I've been following it since a very long time.
Fantastic. So I'm sure you'll be able to give us some very interesting insights. And in fact, to the last question, the first question I have for you relates to, again, what could potentially have led to an upsurge in interest in certain Latin American countries, like, for example, Argentina and Venezuela. And I would say that in recent months, there have been some, let's say, economic turmoil, especially, for example, in Venezuela. We've also seen the issuance of the petrodollar. And taking this, let's say, common denominator into consideration, do you think that, again, potentially some economic issues could lead to an increase in crypto adoption in such countries?
100%. I've been living in Argentina. I lived in Argentina for 20 years, and since I'm, 10, I have my savings in another currency that sometimes was dollar, sometimes was euro. And then when I grew older, I started buying assets. When I started being in touch with crypto, it was a great way to have those assets in another form that would be, in this case, a digital or asset. So I think there are many things that combine to create this flourishing adoption of crypto. The first one is the inflation that we have in Venezuela and in Argentina. Also, not trusting the financial institutions to save our money, because we have seen that, for example, in Argentina in 2001, we lost a lot of savings for the ones that we were having our assets there in the bank. And then the third one is that we always look to invest in other stuff that are not having our savings in pesos. But with all the the volatile laws, like forex limitations in the quantity of how many dollars can you buy per month, or if you can buy or not for your condition, I think all those things bring a prosperous ecosystem for crypto adoption.
And just in fact, one additional question in relation to the last point you mentioned. In terms of the convertibility from pesos to another asset and vice versa, are there any particular issues in terms of, let's say, the common assets that are used to date, and is crypto a better solution in that regard as well?
For sure they were. Right now, there is also a limit to buy through some platforms. So it can be difficult also to buy crypto via digital platforms. You can still find peer-to-peer, like buying
Like
crypto.
local bitcoins, for example?
Yes. So that would be a good way of buying crypto assets.
Great, thank you. Jesus, what's your take on this one?
So I tend to agree. I think Latin America is sort of a perfect combination of cultural, socioeconomics, and also technological factors that could collide to sort of to foment the adoption of crypto. We have several of the biggest exchanges in Latin America, like RIP in Argentina, Mercado Bitcoin in Brazil, as clients, and we see the levels of inflows and outflows at the blockchain level that are increasing, as well as the usage in DeFi protocols. Part of it is obviously accelerated by the economic climate. Venezuela is seeing record inflations. I think worldwide is something we never seen. Argentina, unfortunately, there is a lot of uncertainty around the economic climate, and a new default on the debt. It didn't help. But also, I think the part of the adoption of crypto goes beyond the economic conditions, because if you think about it, there are other regions of the world that have similar economic conditions, and we don't see the same level of adoption. I think one of the things that made Latin America unique, particularly countries like Argentina and Brazil, are the technological talent. It's not a secret that Argentina in particular has been one of the champions and the most progressive countries in terms of the adoption of crypto technologies and the creation of crypto technology. We have a development center in Puerto Madero, and over years I built different engineering teams in Argentina, and the level of education is remarkable, and the technological community is impressive. And also, movements like DeFi act as an equalizer between for financial products between first world countries and developing nations, and that has been like that throughout the history of the world. And obviously DeFi is like a pillow fight, right? So in a very early stage, but if at least in principle, is very enticing for these economies to build products on top of those rails, because it removes a little bit of dependencies of, not trustworthy governments that have a track record of not being good stewards of the public financial system.
Yes, as you mentioned, quite an interesting point, which I'd like to pick up on as well. With regards to the understanding of the technology and its potential correlation with adoption, I mean, is it something that is, let's say, important for, let's say, an adoption of a particular cryptocurrency or a set of cryptocurrencies. So do you believe that a technical understanding of let's say, of how it works helps in the adoption of cryptocurrency?
So the point I was, obviously we can find, as the industry evolves, you can find users of all levels, right? Technologically savvy
Exactly.
If we're only going to market to technologically savvy users, we don't have an industry, right? The point that I was trying to make is that countries like Argentina has been at the forefront of creating products and innovating in the space because of the technological culture that they have. The same with Brazil, and that has obviously facilitated the adoption within the community. As you're seeing more companies, more startups popping up, companies that understand the local culture, the local economic dynamics, are making it easier for consumers to adopt crypto in those specific regions. I mean, if you want a parallel, we're seeing the same with India these days, right? After regulation was lifted, and I think that's a good example to follow. I think Argentina has led the charge in terms of contributions to the crypto ecosystem in Latin America, and that obviously has facilitated the adoption.
Perfect. Thanks a lot for that, Jesus. And if you don't mind, in terms of the second question, I'd also like to start off with you, because you mentioned Brazil, and incidentally, there have been a set of regulations introduced recently in Brazil, which might affect exchanges there. And speaking of exchanges, I personally think that the Latin American country with, let's say, the most noise, let's say that, in terms of certain service providers like exchanges, seems to be Brazil. I mean, you mentioned even a couple of examples yourself. And is there any reason for this? Do you think there's anything about Brazil which, let's say, led to this, let's say, increase of service providers who, as you mentioned as well, are becoming quite big as well?
Yeah, I think culturally, if you follow the history of different technology trends, countries like Brazil have developed a culture for sort of developed products that are very localized. Like many of the open source projects, you can go through history, the big data movement, the e-commerce movement, the cloud computing movement. They were products created by Brazilians for the Brazilian market, and because it's so huge and it's so unique that for a while you don't need to internationalize. And I think a lot of that is happening in crypto. Obviously, Brazil, if you follow the news, go through a massive series of scandals, from the Petrobras to the Odebrecht to the collapse of administration, Lula being put in prison, and a new government that is a very hardliner. So there is a lot of uncertainty around the economic climate and what's going to happen with the economy, and obviously crypto startups are capitalizing on that.
That makes sense, definitely. What about you, Marco? What's your take on this?
I would say, and I agree with Jesus, the market is huge, and also I would add on that investment normally in Brazil, it's less conservative than other countries. For example, you can see Argentina, that is very, like as Jesus said, tech savvy, and they want to, like, we want to, like, be innovative, but the capital is not there. In case of Brazil, I see that there is more investment going through the crypto scene in general. So I think that it's very important, and also with the development of different solutions in this industry, I think in comparison with Argentina, that is very centric. It's very concentrated in Buenos Aires. In Brazil, you have different like nodes that are competing to see who is better. So that gives a certain competition locally to be better and to adopt more and to be on the next level in each solution.
Do you think that there's the possibility of Bitcoin or any other crypto really potentially becoming a reserve currency in any particular LatAm jurisdiction? I know it's a big shot. I know it's that basically we're talking about the, let's say, the victory potentially of cryptocurrencies over well-known reserve currency like the US dollar. But again, do you think there's any possibility for that, be it in the near, mid, or long-term future?
Jesus, you want to start?
Well, I never lived in Latin America, even though I traveled the entire region. So I don't have the experience of being a citizen in those countries and dealing with the economic dynamics. But if I can draw a parallel from Europe and the US, the thesis of Bitcoin being a global reserve currency is still very early, and I think it has been put to test through with the recent economic downturn. Like if you the minute the whole thing with COVID started and the economic sort of semi-recession, you see all these theories of comparing, okay, Bitcoin with gold one day, Bitcoin with different stocks, and all those theories proven out to be not incorrect, but let's say not mature enough, right? The closest that I've seen in terms of research that sort of convinced me, and I think my session in Consensus, I presented this thesis, is a couple of researchers from the University of Berkeley, California, that they wrote a paper in which they call Bitcoin a high sentiment beta asset, which means high sentiment beta assets in capital markets are let's say stocks that are medium to small cap, that when the big cap, the large cap stock are up, they're up disproportionately to the large cap stock, and when they're down disproportionately to the large cap stock. And that has proven out to be correct. If you follow the trends of fan stocks compared to Bitcoin, you can see a certain level of over time correlation. So all these theories that if it's comparable to gold or silver or things like that, I think it's too early, and the market is too small. I mean, you're talking about a few $100 billion. I mean, it's like a pillow fight today. Now, having said that, the idea of having a currency that is more stable than what is provided by the monetary systems in those countries, that is fully digital, fully global, that has definitely store of value capabilities, and that has all these financial applications built on top of it, is as appealing of an option to Latin American countries as they have right now. Because other than that, obviously dollarization hasn't worked in many of those economies. Most of the currencies, the native currencies, have been incredibly unstable. So as the market grows, I think Latin America could be one of the biggest adopters and maybe push that agenda. Together with that, if you start seeing central banks adopting some sort of crypto assets in some form, whether it's a stable coin, whether it's some sort of I think that's probably going to be a push for Latin American governments, central banks to go after that type of innovation.
Very eloquently put, Jesus. And in fact, Marco, it also echoes what you mentioned earlier on in terms of, again, having had to, let's say, find an alternate currency or an alternative asset. And again, I would love to hear your take as well in terms of, the potential adoption of crypto as a reserve currency in any Latin American country.
I find it difficult in the short midterm, because we're very proud of our currencies in general. We don't want to have, like the ones we have right now, we don't want to change it. We don't want to be dollarized. We see the dollar as a great asset to save. But if we go to, any place and pay in dollars, it will be weird for us. and the same like having a massive adoption of Bitcoin as a reserve. But what I can see is that maybe one of the Latin American countries will be leading the like crypto issued by the central bank, like be the pioneers in the world of adopting a digital currency, decentralized digital currency, as I don't know, other countries in the world that are trying to issue that kind of currency.
And in fact, just the last point, because we're out of time. You mentioned again the uptake of a decentralized digital currency. So I'm taking it that you're not, let's say, a believer of the petrodollar, which was, let's say, proposed in Venezuela.
No. In case, I mean, the petrodollar was to me was like a very good implementation of, I don't know, a political resource to show the society what the government was capable of, but I don't see the mass adoption in the country of that. I am saying that probably we can see a country, a Latin American country, issuing the first decentralized crypto asset in one of the countries and adopting it massively with the population.
Perfect. Well, gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure discussing with you. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Marco. I'm sure that, again, our audience had a lot of valuable information being passed on to them, and again, valuable insights coming in from the Latin American region. And that's a wrap from my end. Thank you once again, and thanks to the audience for following us as well.